Okay, so this video will be regarding optimistic updates and how we can implement them uh, using Next.js and TanStack Query basically. So let me log in. So first, let's see what optimistic updates are, right? So I think the development server is slow. It doesn't matter. So these are our to-dos, 5 example to-dos, and this is a button which just sets the state that the to-do is done. So let's click on it. You can see that it got done immediately. Okay. Now let's introduce a delay in our backend so that this API endpoint takes a bit of time. So let's add a delay of 4 seconds and let us open the network tab. So now you can see when I click on this, so the request is still pending, and after 4 seconds it gets done. So what optimistic updates are? They're basically a way such that the UI is updated immediately, even though the actual mutation occurs even after some time. So we have to find a way so that it is done immediately, at least the UI, so that it is a good user experience. So let's open our front end code. So this is the update to do status mutation. It has a mutation function where I'm just simply hitting an post put request to an endpoint, and on success I'm invalidating this query with query key to do's and just showing a toast notification. So now let's see. Let us see how we can implement this. So in this use mutation, we have one more function called onMutate. Right? Let it be in async. This. So this onMutate function, what it is, when does it run? First of all, so this onMutate function runs even before the mutation function. So whenever this mutation is called, so we call it using mutation.mutate, right? So when this happens, immediately this onMutate function runs. And this makes it perfect for optimistic updates because it allows us to update the UI even before this server request has been made. So using this is our main weapon. So using this, we'll make changes to the UI. So basically the main purposes are to prepare for the optimistic update and to update the cache optimistically and to return a context so that if let's say an error occurred here, right? So we can roll back our state to the previous one. So if you go to TanStack query only, optimistic updates, let's go TanStack query. So if you go through these docs, they give us basically two ways to do it. One is using this variables thing, and the second is using the cache. Where is it? Via the cache. So we'll be implementing this via the cache way here. We can also do it using the variables thing. So what variables does is it gives us the mutation data so that we can show it directly in the list only, right? But now there are let's see what is our case exactly. So we are updating it here, and then let's say if we had to show something else in the same component, we could have done it using variables thing. And the cache thing, the second method, it also has one more benefit, like as we are setting the cache directly, so if there are multiple places in which we had to do the optimistic update on the same mutation, that can be done using cache. So let's do this using cache, changing the query cache only. Okay, so let's write the mutate on mutate function. Okay. So first of all, what we'll do is we'll just await. We'll cancel the queries, right? Await dot cancel queries. Let's see which queries we are going to cancel. If there was any query running with query key to do, so this query key is basically for the query where I fetch the to-dos. So we'll cancel it so that we don't overwrite our optimistic updates. So if any refetch is going on, we'll cancel that first. Okay. Now we'll get the previous values. So let me write comments also. Snapshot of the previous values. Okay, so const previous to do's equals to query client dot get query data, and this will be get query data directly of this query. So this is the query key we are passing. So this previous to do's will have the current query data of the current query data basically. So this will have the previous to do's, right? Now we need to optimistically set update to the new value, right? So now we have to set the query data, right? So query client dot set query data. Okay, so this set query data will have two things, right? uh, Sorry, it will have the first the query key in which we want to set the query data, and then it will give us the previous uh, old to do's, which will be of type to do, an array of to do, and this will provide us. Now we'll just return what we want, right? uh, this will be the bracket. Okay, nice. So now we'll just return these old dot map. Let's do conditionals. Old dot map. So this will be a to do, and then now I'll return if to do dot id equals to id. Okay, so if to do dot id equals to id, then what will happen is first I'll spread my this initial to do, and then I'll change the status of it. So status will be to do dot status. If to do dot status is to do, then I'll change it to something, right? To do dot status equals to do, then I'll change it to done. Sorry, then I'll change it to done. Otherwise I'll change it to do, right? And this will have another option which will just be to do. So what exactly is happening here is we are taking the old to do's, we are getting the to do id, and we are checking that whether it is equal to current id. This is a to do card, right? So each card is an id. So we're checking if both of these are the same, then just spread the previous one and update the status of it. So if the status currently was to do, change it to done. If the status was done, else change it to do. Okay, so this is what we did here exactly. And now we'll just return the previous to do's, previous to do's. So what this return of this onMutate does is it provides us a new parameter on the on error, on the on settled as well. So what we can do is we can use that context to get hold of these previous to do's. So let's say I want to roll it back, right? If it fails, so then I can roll it back using these previous to do's. So I'll just show you. Let's remove the on success for now, and let's have on error, right? So on error will have error, and let's see, we don't need this part, second variable, and the third one will be context, right? So here what I can do is I can set the data back to set query data because it failed here, right? So which query? To do's query data. And what I'll set it to context dot previous to do's. So on, if this failed, if my mutation failed, I'll set it back to the previous to do's, right? And I can show a toast if you want toast dot error fail to. Okay, and then we can have an on settled here as well. So what we want to do is when everything is settled, whether it passed or whether it failed, we just want to invalidate the queries. Which query? With query key as to do's. Okay, so this query I'll show you, it is in the to do list component. So here what we are doing is in the use to do's custom hook, This is the query of to-dos. What it does is it just fetches the to-do list from the backend. Okay, so now let's see once what exactly we did. We created an we added the on mutate function, cancelled the previous, if any refetches were going on for this query, cancelled those because we don't want to do it again and again. We took a snapshot of the previous to-dos. These are the previous to-dos. We updated the UI, not exactly updated the UI, we updated the cache, updated the status here directly. And on error, we revert back if an error happened, and if everything is settled, we do invalidate queries. So why we did this is to just match the data, right? So we updated the UI initially only using this query only. When I update this query data, I'll update the UI using this, but then I want it to be matched, right? So that it is the real data. Finally, when this query is invalidated and real data is fetched from the backend, so those both of them should match. So this is for that only. Okay, now let's see what exactly this did in our front end. Let's open the front end, let's reload, and let's see. Clear this. Let's see only the fetch XHR. This. You see, the UI got immediately updated, but this is still going on. And when this got invalidated, the query, this was refetched again. Then you can see it didn't nothing changed in the UI, but then this data is now real time connected to the backend. So let's see again. Clear this, update this. Immediately it got updated, and then I made a after 4 seconds when this real query when the promise got settled, so then I refetched it this task, and we got the updated task, right? So the status of the second is done now. Okay, so this was initially what optimistic updates are and how we implement them using React query. Now let's see one small problem here, right? Okay, first of all, there is one more thing which I wanted to tell you, that you don't always need to invalidate the queries when everything is settled. There can be an alternative, right? Let's say we have an on success function, and on success I just want to set the query data. Query client dot set query data, right? So what I could do was that I have basically two options, right? First of my option is, can I open this without logging in? Okay, so on promise settle, I have two options, right? One is invalidate the original query, so data is refetched, or another option is to set the query data myself, right? So I have these two options basically after when the promise is settled. So on error, you know that, right? So on error, I set the query data to previous, right? So this is what we did basically on error. But now on promise settled or on success, we have two options: invalidate the original query data. So this is one of the option, and the second option is to set the query data myself. So when should we do this and when should we do this? Currently in the code you can see I am doing the second option, right? I'm invalidating the query data, but I could have done even the previous one. Why I'm invalidating the query data? Because this data is not big, so the refetch will not be uh, let's say that time consuming or that resource consuming, so I'm just invalidating it. But if you think like if you think your API has a lot of data, lots and lots of data, so you can just set the data yourself, so you don't have to refetch it, right? So that is one case. So these are the two cases you can do on promise settled. Okay, so now let's move on to the problem that we were going to discuss in optimistic updates. So I'll show you. So let's do this first. Immediately UI got updated. After a few seconds, this got refetched. Immediately UI got updated. After a few seconds, the backend invalidated the query. So this is good. The user experience is better. But now we have a problem. Let's say I did it quickly, right? One, two, three, four. UI got updated. but now invalidation is happening. So one by one invalidation is happening, states are being updated. So you see how inconsistent this is and how bad this user experience will be if I do this at once. So as you can see, one by one, then they are going back, because when the first query got invalidated, it understood that only this one is set to not done. So all those were set to done. Then this one is set to not done. All those were set to done, even though the UI was updated previously only. So this is not good. Of course, this is not good. Let's see it once more. This, this. See. So this is uh, a very interesting thing that I found out when I was trying to implement optimistic updates myself yesterday. So now I was thinking of a solution. This I'll show you the solution I came up with. Of course, that might not be the best solution. So if you know a better solution, you can of course share that resource with me or share that code snippet. So let's look at what solution I thought of, right? So I thought that if we have multiple mutations going on, right? When I click on this, these all are a mutation. So what I thought was, let's only invalidate the query when all the mutations are done. So let's not invalidate it on every mutation done, because you can see query is being invalidated on each and every mutation. Each and every mutation, when the promise is settled, query will get invalidated. So you might have seen people do this in code. So we'll just create a ref, right? So let's create a ref. Const pending mutation ref is equals to user ref, and the ref, let's say there are 0 pending mutations right now. Okay, so on mutate, as I told you previously, this runs before even the mutation. So this is the first entry point. So let's add that, uh, add the mutation to the pending list. So pending mutation ref dot current plus equals to 1, right? So now the mutation is 1. So whenever two mutations go on, first the mutation will be 1, then the mutation will be 2. Now let's add the logic 2. When a mutation is settled, so we have to remove the mutation from the pending list, like, so the pending mutation ref dot current minus equals to 1. And as we discussed, we only want to invalidate the query once, and that is when the mutation pending mutation ref count is, if it is 0, only then you do this, right? So when I thought this, I thought that okay, this should work. I took help of ChatGPT and all these things. I thought that okay, this should work. This should probably work, because the idea, you get it, right? You get the idea of this. So when, let's say I updated this to do, this to do, and this to do. Now, when this one mutation happened, count increased to 1. This happened, count increased to 2. This happened, count increased to 3. This got ended. When this got ended, count decreased to 2. But invalidation did not work. Why? Invalidation did not happen because I've added a condition there that invalidation will only happen when the mutation ref.current is 0. Okay, so invalidation did not happen. Now, second, when this got completed, second one, this again decremented to 1. Now only one mutation is left to be settled, and when this got done, now only 0 is left to be settled. So our condition was this only, that only when 0 are present, then invalidate the query. Okay, so let's see what happens now. First, let me do it one by one. Then let me do this. This is also done. Okay, let me refresh it, and let's go. Let's go over it. One, two, three, four. Okay, 4 mutations happened. Oh, you see that? So the query got invalidated 4 times. So this again, the same thing is happening, which same error is happening, not an error but a bug, which was happening previously. That even though I have added this check of increasing the mutation count, pending mutation count, then decreasing it, and implementing, only invalidating the query when the ref.current value is 0. So why is it still happening? Let's let's see. Let's see what the ref value is. Okay, so console.log pending mutation ref.current. Whenever every mutation ref current value is updated. Let's see what is the value. Okay, let's go to the console. Let's refresh, clear it. So I'll do it quickly, one by one. So according to us, the mutation value, the ref value should be 1, then 2, 3, and 4, right? So this, this. You can see that all the times the mutation dot ref dot current value is still 1. So how is that happening? Why is that happening initially? So this bug I've faced it many times actually during my work as well, because you might have heard about the concept of closures in JavaScript, that they take the value of their parents, whatever value they had initially, and then work with that only. So that thing is exactly happening here also. It took the current value as 0, and then it is just updating it from 0 to 1, then from 0 to 1, again 0 to 1, 0 to 1. So because of this closure thing, this is not being updated actually properly. So even if I replace this ref with a state, that would not be an ideal solution here, because the state will cause re-renders. That is why we are using a ref. But even if I replace it with a state, same thing will happen. Then also the state will again and again update to from 0 to 1, from 0 to 1. You might have also, if you work with React and Next, whatever, you might have also faced these kind of strange bugs sometimes, that the state is not updating because in some functions, because those functions have closures, right? You can go through that closure thing on the internet to learn more about it. Okay, so now, so what is the fix exactly? So I'm not sure if this is a good fix, but this is a possible fix which I did. And as I said, if you have a better solution, feel free to share the resource with me. I also want to learn more about these optimistic updates. So there is a very, it is a very simple fix actually. So what I thought was, if this ref is being value is being because of closure not being updated properly, so let's take it this ref out from here and just put it in a context. So I created a context called mutation context. This was initially created. Here we have a ref called pending mutations. On there is a function increment pending. On increment pending, we are increasing the value of this mutations dot current. Decrement pending, we are decreasing it to by 1. And then the get, we have a get pending count where I'll just return the pending mutations dot current value. So now, because that thing won't happen here, this should work, right? So let's, I have a this hook here. So let's see what this hook is returning us. Const. First I have increment pending, then I have decrement pending, then I have get pending count. So add the mutation to the pending list. Instead of our local ref, we just do increment pending. Remove the mutation, we just do decrement pending. If pending ref dot current equals to 0, instead of this, we have a function, right? Get pending. If get pending count equals to 0, then invalidate the query. So now let's revisit it and open the network tab, and let's see. Refresh it. I'll refresh it once. And we can, let's do it quickly and let's see if how many times the query is being invalidated. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 mutations were made, right? And the query got invalidated only once. So if you see the user experience this time, so there is no bugs, right? So there is no on and off of the status. So let's do it again. Did it instantly. The UI got updated because I am managing the cache myself. I'm updating the cache myself. And on, after each and every mutation, leave the mutation that got successed. Of course, here the invalidation happened only once, and this is because of this logic. That logic we discussed previously. We were trying to do that with a local ref, right? Instead of that, if you use context and then update it there, the values, then this works as expected. So now this is a much better solution, and that removed that bug we were facing initially. Yeah, so this is basically what I wanted to talk about in optimistic updates. You can also add, as you can see, this time the update is instant, right? But you can add more things, like if you want to add a to do, let's say on this create button, we want to show add a to do instantly. So what you can do is, some people what they try to do is they'll show, I'll update the cache like I am doing here, right? So I'll add a new to do just to the previous one. But what I'll do is I'll add a check in the UI that if we can have a flag here. Okay, let's go to my to do type. Here I can have a flag, something like underscore underscore optimistic, and that can be boolean. And whenever I add a new to do myself, then what I'll do is in the cache, then what I'll do is I'll set this optimistic to true. And when this optimistic will be true, I'll just set the uh, opacity of this card to 50, let's say. So that will be just a kind of an indication to the user that okay, this is adding. And then when the invalidation of the query goes on, then that will be returned back to normal because we got the real cache data, real data to the React query cache. So this that is just a small implementation or a UI thing that people like to do. I saw different YouTube videos. This is what they were doing. I read a few blogs as well. So this is a good UI thing to do. But I think this was it for today. And yeah, like I said, feel free to share any resources regarding that if you find a better way to do this than a because of course I don't think context is the best way to do it. You can of course do it using some state management as well, like Redux or whatnot, but that won't be an ideal case. So if you got any better ways to do it, feel free to share with me. And I think that's it for today.